Hello and welcome to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. With 4 race starts, we're going to start with our Category 4 riders, then 3, 2 and 1. Our riders lined up in yellow, that is our Category 1 riders. In green, our Category 2. In blue, Category 3 and Category 4.
This is the first climb of the course, and Lytton now nearly at the top. She's put an attack in and she's gained 9 seconds now on this chase group behind. Gilson is obviously up for this today. She's been known to time trial away from the field before, and she is utilising the run into this climb to kick hard. These are the 2 riders, Lopez and Ochoa, who are about to be swept up by the leading 2 riders in the Category 1 race.
Gilson, I think, is just taking a little bit of a breather. I think that was the target. Get with this group and then use them for a little bit of a breather. Yep. But at the moment, they're using Gilson, not the other way around.
These are the leaders on the road at the moment at 32.52 kilometres. They are well and truly on that final climb, and their wheels are pointing skyward.
It's Lytton and Paul Garin who are going to be fighting this out. Now they're starting to wind this up. You can see the yellow gantry coming up in front of them. That's the dip. This is the rise. Paul Garin's leading this out. Paul Garin is putting an extra big kick. She's going to make it.
Hello and welcome to the monthly final of the Sunday Race Club. Well, we're ready for a great day of racing here on MyWhoosh. A very, very warm welcome. I'm Anthony McCrossan, and going to be joining me shortly is Emma Martin to guide you through all the action on today's racing. As always, we will have the 4 different categories with the start of Category 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. But this is the most important weekend of the calendar, of course, as we bring you the monthly final. Well, Emma, alongside me, welcome along. Today is the culmination of all the qualifications that we've had over the last few weeks.
Yeah, it is indeed, Anthony. It is great to be here today because you're right, today is the June final. We've had 3 qualifiers, and today it's individual and teams that count.
Very important then to get a good start. Today we're going to be on this wonderful Arabia course. Let's take a look at it. Here we go. Along the way, 35 kilometers for the women. They've got 5 sprint sections, as you can see. 1 climb of 2.1 kilometers, which comes towards the middle of the course. And then the final rise up to Jebel Jais, this 6.5 kilometer fearsome ascent that takes us to 413 meters. It's a very, very tough finish. Now, this characterization of this course, Emma, it's difficult, isn't it, to work out your tactics, because if you're not a climber, today is one where you've got to get ahead of the peloton.
Yeah, it is indeed. And, 2/3 of the climbing is in that final Category 2 climb. So that climb really does count, and that is what our climbers will be looking for. But there are opportunities to attack. You can see it is a rolling terrain, and the maximum gradient of 9.1% today doesn't come in that final climb. It comes in those little kickers along the way. And you can see that dip, Anthony, between 20 kilometres and 27 kilometres. That, for me, is probably the key attack point, and where we may well see some of our riders ago.
Well, we'll look forward. We'll pick out that little point. Here we are live as we watch the various different categories getting themselves warmed up. As you can see, far right-hand side of the screen, we're 1 minute and 7 seconds now from the start of Category 4. And there will be 5-minute time gaps between each of the individual sections, the individual categories, counting all the way down to the left-hand side of the screen, the yellow jerseyed Category 1 riders. And they're about 15-16 minutes until they get to their race start. So let's focus in and we'll concentrate on Category 4. As you can see here, there's the lineup of the various teams: the Chile Crew, Psycholic, Strong 5 and What Women. There are also some individual riders within this specific category. Emma, they're in the red jerseys. We'll pick out the riders as we get them out on the course. The Category 4 riders, we've had some great racing between them over the last few weeks.
Oh, absolutely. And the What women, which were the What ladies last month, took the win. And it's a strong team of Giuliano, Hoeller, and Vink. But I think Strong Five and possibly the Psychoholic team are also really in with a chance today.
We'll pick them out as we go, and we're underway then with the Category 4 riders. Always important to get a good start. You've got to get the power on right as you go off the starting blocks there, and we are already up and running. And it's the rider at the front, Jacqueline Kirschner, who is the early leader. But important now, Emma, isn't it? The riders have had to go through their warm-up, get themselves ready. It's a really tough discipline, this, and you can't come into it cold. You've got to be really ready for racing.
Oh, absolutely. The warm-up is central to a good start here, and also being part and parcel of timing your effort off the start line. Now, some of our riders like to go off harder. We're seeing Al Kahabi at the moment around 4 watts per kilo coming out of this Category 4 race, just settling back now into the pack. And we can see on the top right-hand corner of the screen, Anthony, we've got a couple of riders preferring a slower start now. My expectation would be that they would indeed make the catch back to the group. Just a bit of a steadier start for them today.
You can see, just if you're watching this for the first time, let's just talk you through the screen. Top left-hand side, you see the data of the watts, the time that's elapsed, the speed that the riders are going at, around about 30 kilometers an hour. You can see their cadence as well, the number of times they're spinning the pedals in a minute, so 81, 82 at the moment, and a little bit of an idea of the heart rate of the rider as well. Right-hand side is our navigation. That shows you where we are on the course, and down on the right-hand side you can see our leaderboard, which is shuffling around all the time, and in the middle it tells you who we are watching. So Salama Al-Kabi is the rider that we are on board with right now. So Emma, you've been on these races over the last few months, well, quite a few months now. In this race, who do you identify possibly as the top 3 riders who we would anticipate would be right there at the start, at the finish line, at the top of Jabal Jais?
Well, this Category 4, Anthony, is quite a competitive category, actually. You know, Lytton, Ospina, Alzat, Hoeller have all finished really strongly in the qualifying races this month. But the course that we are on today, with an 8-kilometre climb coming up the end, I think is probably going to suit Ella Vink if she can be with the pack as we hit the bottom of that climb. She is a phenomenal climber, and we saw that in the MyWhoosh Championships day after day in the mountains. Lytton is very strong as well, but Ospina has had a 2nd and a 3rd in her 2 qualification races, so she really is on form at the moment.
Looking forward to that. Then we'll see if Ella Vink does come through to take that individual victory during today. But today is about more than just the individual, isn't it? It's about the teams. Explain to us, how does this team competition work when we get to the end of each of these categories? Because these riders are, of course, racing for that monthly final. They want to be the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the monthly final today, it is indeed a team competition as well as an individual competition. So individually, the riders need to have had 2 verified qualification finishes to qualify for the finals. In terms of putting the teams together, that then comes into the monthly finals. Each team, maximum of 5 members, minimum of 3. It's 3 riders times across the line to count. So the first 3 riders in your team, once they've crossed the finish line, their total time racing is added together, and that gives you the team competition. Now, sometimes we see this exceptionally close. So last month in Category 2, it was 10 seconds separating the top 2 teams, and only 24 seconds separating the top 3 teams. So very, very competitive team competitions, and those tactics really come out to play in the monthly final.
Great stuff. Well, we'll look forward to seeing how the teams do. We're going to turn our attention a little bit now to Category 3, and these are the key teams within that. They'll be wearing the blue jerseys around about a minute till they start. So the Challengers, the Clover team, and the Watts team in this Category 2 section. There's some individual riders as well who will be going off the start line in Category 3. We're going to give them that little bit of a countdown again. Out of those teams, who do you see as the key favourites?
Well, I think it's the Challengers team who are the team to beat, but I think the Watts team with Ferraro, Marin, Montoya and Abando could do very well in terms of challenging them today.
Here we go then, let's count them down. They've got just a few seconds until they get off those turbo trainers and get themselves onto the race proper. Here we go then, we are underway in Category 3 in this monthly final in this women's race. There's the peloton just forming up as they make their way out of the race start on the boardwalk kind of section. And then they're going to go past, of course, the sights and sounds of Arabia. Looks like, again, we've got this scenario where we've got a couple of riders preferring that slower start here, Emma.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do see that because, as we've just seen, a massive kick go off the front there. So one of the riders really putting in a bit of an effort there, and that indeed is Jose Gallego at the moment. So just settling back down after that big kick to ensure that she made the front of that group, not wanting to miss that start. And we mentioned, Anthony, at the beginning of that Category 4 race, how important the start is, because if you are not part and parcel of that pack in this flat start today, you're not making the benefit of the draft in that group, and then having a lonely ride.
You are having a lonely ride, aren't you? And the draft is key.
You are.
Very, very important.
Oh, absolutely. Week in, week out, we talk about it's not the strongest rider with the highest power output that wins the race. It's the smartest rider who can utilise the draft and actually get their position within the group right. You don't really want to be the rider with the highest watts per kilo at the end of the race. You want to be the clever rider who has utilised the technique on the MyWhoosh platform and ridden a really smart race to win.
We've just gone through the Abu Dhabi Sprint with the first group of riders, so they've gone through that first section. We will, of course, update you on all the various sprints as we go. Over on the right-hand side, you can see the group in the red. That's the 4th category riders, and things are now all together, aren't they? Everything is starting to just settle down a little bit. We talked beforehand about what might the scenarios be in this race. Will the riders wait until that final climb? Will they attack before? And it looks like here on the Category 4s, they're just quite happy to ride at a pretty steady tempo right now and stay together.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can see that little climb there just up over the bridge, stretching the group a little bit. And I do love that top right-hand graphic because it does really give you, as a viewer, a really clear indication of what is actually happening in the race at the exact moment in time. So the group just stretching there up and over the bridge. But you're right, Anthony, this is a really steady pace at the moment, being led out by Lytton and Vink. Kirchner is there as well. And this group all coming back together now at the top of that small rise section. They'll drop down and then face the next climb. And this course, Anthony, I think some of these climbs may start to whittle the group down into smaller groups. 18 riders were on the start sheets of our Category 4 race today. I don't think it's going to be an 18 rider pack that it's not an 18 rider pack that we've got here. We've already lost a couple of riders, but not many. But I don't think we're going to see a group this size go into the final climb today.
And as you mentioned, it's all about the preserving of your energy. It's about tactics. It's about being in a slipstream. As we take a look at both these teams that are out, or both these categories that are out on the course. And as we know, in bike racing, you've only got so many times that you can really put the power on. And if you are constantly pushing the tempo on these little kickers that you mentioned that are the hardest part of the course, it's very easy, isn't it, when you're a little bit inexperienced? You look at this profile and you say the hardest part of this course is Jabal Jais at the end of what is going to be 35 kilometers of racing. But in reality, it's the other bits of the course that really take it out of your legs.
Absolutely. And in a team competition today, that really, for me, is where the smart team is going to be sacrificing riders to ensure that their top 3 get over the line first.
Let's take a look then on the left-hand side as we go to our Category 2 riders. There they are warming up. Let's take a look then at the various squads. Here they are, the Gladiators, the Mermaids team, Pink Power and Team Europe are our Category 2 riders. There's also a couple of individual riders who will be on the start line for today's race. There's the rundown. Now, which is our strongest team in Category 2 as we wait for them to start?
Category 2 is a really interesting category for this June final, purely because, Anthony, we've seen so many Category 2 riders progress to Category 1 this month. So it's phenomenal to see them move on up. We've seen Acevedo and Salazar come into Category 2. And at the moment, I think this is a completely open team competition.
And we're off then in Category 2 as they make their way under that arch and get themselves going. We're on board with Maria Carmona, taking these little tricky left-hand turns before we get out on that boardwalk and get out onto the road. So a 215, 216 watts off the start, and one rider just going a little bit clear off the front at the very start. There's Angie Para, and a little bit of split in this group already.
Well, I'm not surprised. Para is well known for a fast start, and she really likes to pick up the pace and get it rolling very, very quickly and pull that group up and out the start pen every week.
Well, she's doing it yet again, opening up that advantage behind Pia Pena and also Wendy Salazar, just trying to close the gap on Angie Para. It's a little tactic of hers, isn't it, to make everybody's legs hurt?
Yeah, and absolutely make them think, oh, this is going to be a fast race. You know, I'm going to say normally is the word I'm going to use. Normally, she does settle down and back in the group, but Para, one of the riders that we know, really does like an attacking and constant high pace.
She's setting a really high tempo.
Yeah, she is indeed. And the group at the moment, we've got just one rider in trouble off the back there and wanting a much steadier start to this race, as Para has the rider who's pushed on. But the group not really responding. They're motoring and moving quite well, but they're not responding to that kick of Para's. So I think they think she's just doing the normal Angie Para of starting hard out of that start pen today.
Got to be careful though, you don't want to be in that scenario where you let her go up the road. Here we are back with the Category 4 riders in the reds. It's Tanja Holweiler, the German rider, who's at the front, and just being joined here by Brittany Lytton coming across. This is a little dangerous attack in the Category 4s.
It is, and we talked, didn't we, just a short while ago about the next small climb coming up on this Category 4 race, and Lytton is the rider who has made the most of that. Howeller is the one who's joined her. Ospina and Vink, 12-13 seconds back. In fact, that entire group of, a group of 6 riders, it's looking like being 13 seconds back, and then a further gap now in that group. So it's looking like at least 3 groups on the road in this Category 4 race, and we're not even 6.5 kilometers into this race.
Well, they're going to go through the Bahrain Sprint next. That's about 300 meters. Immediately after that, they're going to get themselves set up for this aquarium climb, which is going to be 2.1 kilometers in length. So it's going to be that tough section. Now, if these 2 riders can start to build that lead, you would anticipate from what you said earlier that Ella Vink would be looking to try and jump across to them on this climb that's going to come up.
Yeah, I think the Category 2 climb at the end really does suit Vink in terms of her strength climbing. She took the climbing competition in the MyWhoosh Championships. That was obviously 7 stages over 8 days, and that was a 50-kilometer race stage each day. So very, very strong rider, Vink, but she's got to be with Lytton and Howeller at the base of that climb to make the use of that climbing ability. Now, the Category 2 race now 2 kilometers into this, and it's looking like that group are well and truly all together.
Yeah, Angie Para, she has come back into the fold within that peloton now, and just quite happy to just sit in the slipstream. Let's get our final group of riders off the start. On the left-hand side, as you can see, the yellow jerseyed Group 1, they're all ready to race. Let's take a look then at the various teams. There they are, the Amazonas team, Fire Girls, Sloth Cycling Club, Spartan Obstacles, Team International. Let's hope the Sloths aren't too steady this morning as we get our way off the start line. And looking at these squads, this is going to be highly anticipated, isn't it?
Oh, I think the Fire Girls and Spartan Obstacles are indeed going to light this up today. But Team International are going to be there or thereabouts as well, because these are absolutely phenomenal riders today on this start sheet. 22 riders today on the start sheets in Category 1.
Have to say the strength in depth of the women's category in MyWhoosh is pretty impressive. So many women already taking part each week. As we get ready for the countdown, we are just about to give them the count of 10. This is our final group of riders, 5 minutes between each group, and these are the Category 1 riders. We're giving them the last couple of seconds, then we'll see what sort of power they're going to produce. We're underway in the Category 1 race. Look at that, the power is immense already. Off the start line, we hit 380 watts from that initial push, and that just shows just how well tuned these riders are for this particular race.
Yeah, so our Category 1 riders are up and away on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. We are obviously on the finals of June, and Mina Coinston, the international triathlete, is the rider we are in with at the moment, and it's really great to see riders from very different backgrounds joining the Sunday Race Club and participating in the finals today. This group,
You're right,
Anthony...
so many... Yeah, sorry, Emma, go ahead.
I was going to say this group all the way together, but one or two riders, as we can see again, just distanced off the back of the group, as we've got a bit of a stretch now coming on the front.
Well, when you look at it, you've got 300 odd watts of power right off the start. There are riders who won't want to have that sort of start, and they will find it very, very hard, and it will take them a little bit of time to get back. But as you mentioned earlier on in one of the earlier categories, you've got to get into that draft. Otherwise, you're going to have a very lonely ride all the way to Jebel Jace, and that is not good news. So you've got to have that balance, haven't you, between that really hard start, but producing enough watts that you stay in that main bulk of riders.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned earlier, Anthony, the warm-up is absolutely key to that. You cannot come into this cold. You really do have to ensure you've done a proper warm-up, and you are absolutely, in terms of timing your effort off of that start line, you don't want to hit your higher power, 15, 20 seconds out, because by the time you get to the actual start, you've put too much effort in and you're over that curve. You really need to get your timing right, and Fur at the moment leading this group out, really regular rider on the Sunday Race Club. She's a very, very experienced rider on MyWhoosh, and she has got an intention here today by the look of that. She's just stretching the group off the front there. Quevedo, in fact, her teammate, the rider in the group behind.
Katrin Fura making her way past the entrance to the Louvre on the right-hand side, this incredible museum that is reconstructed in MyWhoosh. And now the peloton is starting to come back onto the wheel. There's that roof of the Louvre in the background as the riders come back up to her and catch her and go past. Another big attack off the front of the Category 1s. This is really stretched already.
Yeah, and this is, as we said, on the start line, this is a really competitive category. 22 riders, 5 teams on the start sheets today, and they seem to be much more intent on racing this and racing this hard from the go, other than our other 3 categories that have already started today.
Well, the other categories seem to be taking it a little bit more steady. There we are, right-hand side. Well, we've got this attack going on in the bottom right-hand side of the screen, which is the 2 riders at the front. We've got Holweiler and alongside Brittany Litton. These 2 riders are off the front. In Category 2, everything is together. Category 3, everything is together. And Category 1 is very, very quick. But look at the sort of watts that are being put out in the various different categories today. these races are going to be tough, and I think there's going to be some pretty tired women riders at the end of these races, particularly as we make our way onto Jebel Jace. But that's the beauty, isn't it, of course, of this final, the monthly final, where you've been building up in qualification. As you mentioned earlier, you've got to have your 2 qualification finishes. You want to get in your team, and this is the culmination of all of that. And it is one of those where the women will have been thinking about this all week. They want to perform. They want to be the team winners.
Absolutely. And what you have to remember is some of these riders are esports specialists. You know, this is what they do week in, week out. Other riders use esports as part and parcel of the rest of their riding. You know, we've got mountain bike racers in here. We've got triathletes in here. We've got riders who race on the road in here. Some of those do ultra distances. Some of them, you know, much shorter distances. So we've got a real mix of riders and a real mix of backgrounds. In fact, Quevedo is a skater by background, 7 times world champion, and now come to esports and cycling, and her kick is phenomenal. Absolutely, you do not want to take her into the finish line because the power that can come out of Quevedo in a sprint is phenomenal.
She's looked very good, hasn't she? She has ridden well in the qualification races, particularly last time out. She was right up there in her race in the category 1s. But we often find, don't we, that women, as we go through the Abu Dhabi sprint, let's just take a little look at this. This is 300 meters, and along the way today we've got the 5 individual sprints, the 2 climbs, the 1 climb in the middle of the course, and then the final climb up Jebel Jace. But this is where we look to find out who's the fastest rider across this sprint point. 300 meters. This takes us between 3 kilometers and 3.3 kilometers, and it doesn't look like anyone's really going flat out for the sprint. The peloton has decided, let's just ride through here.
Yeah, this is very steady to state now in this category 1 race. We're looking at around 2.5 watts per kilo, 150 watts. You know, Catherine Marin's heart rate 133. This is very steady state for these category 1 women at the moment. So after that initial kick out of the start pens today, this group seem to really have settled down now as they come across this first rise, which is this first bridge ahead of them at the moment.
Yeah, this little bridge takes us over the water, as is the areas around the Arabian course. There's so many different waterways and different bridges that take us onto the different little islands that we will see along the way. We're on board with Catherine Marin. Let's take a look then at the ranking here in the Abu Dhabi sprint. The fastest rider through that section is Catherine Montoya, with a time of 28.670. The heart rate quite steady at 133, but producing 214 watts across that particular section. And she's a rider who was in the category 2 riders. So just shows you don't have to be in the category 1s.
Oh, absolutely not. And I think this really gives you an indication of what's going on in those categories, because category 3 have the, well, fastest times really through there, very, very close. So category 3 and category 2, all around that 30, 31, 32 second mark. You know, right the way through. Our first category 1 rider not coming through until 28th place. Again, pretty much around the same time. So 33 seconds for that category 1 pack coming through. Same time as category 4. So all 4 of those race fields traveling through that segment are pretty much the same pace, not very much discerning or differentiating all 4 of our categories.
The story of the race is much more intricate than just watching the riders on the screen, and that insight from Emma gives you that real indication of just the way that this race is unfolding in the different categories. Let's take a little look on the right hand side then. The riders who are in the red jerseys that we've been enjoying watching right from the start, category 4, these 2 riders, Holweiler and Lytton, are getting themselves now towards this climb, the aquarium climb, the first big climb of the day, and that'll give us an idea of just how strong the legs are. We've got about 1.3 kilometers until we reach the bottom of that climb. That climb is 2.1 kilometers in length. Before that, we go through this tunnel, and then we turn our way onto this particular rise, and it's going to take us pretty heftily uphill. We're at 100 meters above sea level right now, and then we're going to make our way up to the top of that climb. So these two riders then, if they can get themselves over the top of this climb in the lead, then that's going to give them a really huge advantage, because they've already grown 30 odd seconds on the rest of this peloton.
Absolutely. Last time we were in with Lytton and Hoyweller, it was a 13-second gap back to the chasing group of 5. As you mentioned, Anthony, it's now 31, 32 seconds back to that chasing group of 5. And Hoyweller and Lytton now moving through, and you can see the next climb coming up in front of them. Both of them strong climbers, because that's where they broke away earlier on one of the rises before this first climb, the aquarium climb, which is coming up as they come up to the 13-kilometer mark. So it is really interesting to see the tactics now. Lytton is an individual rider, whereas Hoyweller is part and parcel of that What Woman team with Vink and Giuliano. Now, we did flag that team earlier on as being one of the teams that we thought could indeed be looking at being competitive for that win today. So interesting to see the tactics with Lytton and Hoyweller going down the road. Vink, Hoyweller's teammate, in that chasing group of 5, along with a number of other riders.
We're back now with the category 3 riders in the blue, and these riders now are at 10.5 kilometers of race, and they've gone through the Abu Dhabi sprint and the Bahrain sprint, and they're also heading their way now towards the aquarium climb. They're going to make their way into that tunnel and then turn their way onto this particular rise. Here it looks like things are still predominantly a peloton, although we've lost a few riders along the way, but they are riding a nice steady tempo. But the watts that are being produced, variable, but 20 minutes of racing gone by for this particular group as they make their way towards the fearsome end of today's race. Not lost too many riders though, have we? They're riding very well together.
Yeah, this is looking like around, I think this looks around 8 riders in this leading group in this category 3 race, which is interesting to see as they drop back in actually with category 1, because Estrada is the rider pushing on now. This is that first bridge section that we saw an attack in one of our other categories, and Estrada is the rider attacking here in category 1. Quevedo, Fua, Bardescar and Engstrom are the riders doing the chasing behind, but take a look at that on the top right-hand corner of the screen. It really has stretched this group down the road.
She really has put in a massive attack here to try and go clear, trying to break up the rest of this group. There's a bit of a chase going on. Quevedo recognises the danger, tries to jump her way across now to Estrada to try and put herself into a good position. Doesn't want anyone to go up the road. They're closing in on the riders in front, starting to close in on the category in front of them, the category 2 riders. But now it looks like we're going to get 2 riders at the front of the first category race, and it's going to be Estrada and Quevedo who come together and combine into that leading duo now at the front of the race.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is indeed Fura Moreno, Barco and Marin who are leading the chase group behind with Bardescar. Tobin is in there as well. This is a really class field, this category 1 race pack. 14 riders have finished in the top 5 throughout the 3 qualifiers, which gives you the strength and depth of the field of this category 1 women's race, which for me, you know, sort of indicates that we had 22 riders on the start sheets. There are a large number of these women who are all capable of being in the pack still when we get to the bottom of that climb today. You know, so I wouldn't want to leave it to the Hebelhace climb. I'd want to whittle this group down and take maybe 10 riders in, not 22.
Let's see if they split this group up. We've gone on to the Bahrain sprint with category 1. Let's see how the riders do through here. It looks like one rider has just sneaked to the front to just try and up the tempo a little bit. Let's see as we go underneath the closing arch for this Bahrain sprint. That was 300 meters. And we'll get an idea in a moment of how everybody has done in that Bahrain sprint throughout today's race. But this group has come all back together. They have nullified the attack of Estrada and brought it all back together. So now the riders will make their way towards the next section. Here gives you the rundown of how the riders did in this second sprint, the Bahrain sprint, and it's Laura Berrio of the Fire Girls, again from the second category group in 29.191, who takes the fastest time. And behind her, all first category riders.
Yeah, absolutely. So that 29 seconds through this sprint section, pretty much running through the first 5 or 6 positions, in fact down to 7th place, so less than a second separating the top 12 riders through there.
Really tight, wasn't it, between the riders through that particular section? So 2 sprints down. We've got 5 sprints throughout the day, 2 individual climbs. And welcome along if you've joined us on MyWhoosh for the first time. And if you're watching and thinking I'd like to take part, then don't forget, go to mywhoosh.com. You can also follow all our social media on all the various social media challenges. MyWhoosh is generally where you can find us, except on Twitter, which is my_whoosh. And you can find out all the information on mywhoosh.com if you want to take part in these races. We have the Sunday Race Club. There's lots more going on throughout the weeks as well, and you might find yourselves in one of these groups one day if you've been inspired a little bit by the number of women who are taking part in the racing during today's Sunday Race Club. It has become a real community and it's growing all the time. We're looking down here on the riders in blue, and they are the category 3 riders. They have caught a couple of the red clad riders, so they are allowed to sit into the slipstream. There's no rules here, Emma, that the riders in red can't sit in the slipstream, is there?
Oh, no, absolutely not. So category 4 is our first race field away. 5 minute start ahead of the category 3 race field. So the red jerseys category 4, the blue jerseys category 3. No rules that they can't take the draft. No rules that once they get caught, they can't sit in that slipstream and actually take a tow right the way back up to the front of their race field, should that category 3 race field progress. Now, we've just dropped in with category 1 because Daniela Tobin is the rider progressing here. She's progressing away from the front of that field, and it's Fur and Cavado from Spartan Obstacles who are doing the chasing at the moment.
This is a massive attack here by Tobin, who has gone clear to try and break this race up a little bit. These riders have covered about 9 kilometers so far, so they're not on the climb. She's trying to use these little tough sections to her advantage and press home a few seconds.
Yeah, and we said this is where we did say this is where we were going to see those little attacks and the attempt to split the group up, because these bridges are really the only place before the 2 climbs that we could really see some attacks and some effort against the group.
Well, look at the speed right now. The rider's tracking along here at just under 60 kilometers an hour. It's a very, very hefty pace that these riders are putting in as they try to close in on the leading rider, who is pressing home a nice advantage here. And the chase is pretty relentless right now as they try to bring her back into the fold.
Yeah, and one of the techniques we regularly see on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club is that attack on the downhill sections. Most of the riders expecting to take a micro rest on the downhill sections, and those riders who are really aware of the race tactics and how they can utilize the platform, putting in attacks on the downhill sections to really enforce any seconds they claim on that uphill. But Tobin now being brought back in, and it's Liliana Moreno who has brought that gap back down. The group all coming back together, though I can see 1 or 2 riders just distanced off the back and slowly joining the back of that category 1 group.
Good attack then by Tobin.
Yeah, but Tobin now back in on the right hand side of the screen, just shy of 3 kilometers down the road. That's the lead of the category 2 race. And Hermansen, Sanchez, Cabanatan, Walkenhurst, Quintero, Gonzalez, Parra are all in that group. That group, a large group of category 2 riders, sort of reminiscent of the large group of category 1 riders we've got on the left-hand side of your screen. So very similar racing profile on both category 1 and category 2 at the moment, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like everything is fairly calm now in both those groups. Remember, in Category 4, we've got a couple of riders just slightly up the road who are building their advantage. We've not seen that as the way that this race has been unfolding in the other groups. So they're on the right-hand side as we come out of that tunnel. The Category 2 riders in the green. They're not far now from the aquarium climb. We hit that at 13.6 kilometers. We're about to hit that any moment now. We'll make our way up the climb. Here we are back with the first group of riders who went off the start line. This is the riders in red, Category 4, and Salama Al-Kaabi has decided yet again to just try and attack from the peloton and get across to that group at the front. That is Holweiler and Lytton, who have a bit of an advantage on the rest of the group.
Yeah, well, it had gone out to 35 seconds last time when we were the Category 4 women. Holweiler and Lytton's gap now coming down, now at around 15 seconds. So this push on from behind really paying dividends at the moment from Al-Kaabi, Giraldo, Catania, Vink and Ospina are the other riders in that group. I think this is going to come back together again.
They've started to ride, haven't they, pretty hard. The gap now 15 seconds. We're over the top of the aquarium climb. We're through the Usa Al Watan sprint, and we're heading towards the Liwa Desert Sprint, which is the next point of this particular race. And then don't forget, the bottom of the climb is after 28 kilometers today.
It is indeed, but this chase group in Category 4 have now got the leading two riders in their sights, and there's always more motivation when you can see who you're chasing. So it's going to be interesting to see whether that Category 4 attack from Lytton and Holweiler stays out, or whether the group all come back together and we see a leading group of 7 riders in that category.
You did mention, didn't you, at the beginning, that your favourite in that group was Ella Vink, who is a wonderful climber and who is still there in that group, not too far behind, only a couple of seconds behind the rider that we're concentrating on now, Salama Al-Kaabi. So she's still in there and maybe riding a more clever race.
Yeah, now let's not forget, Tanya Holweiler, one of the riders down the road, is Vink's teammate as well. So there may well be some team tactics at play here too. But Vink very much part and parcel of that chase group. Right on the back of that chase group, you can see on the top left-hand corner of your screen, her watts at the moment are in green, indicating she's utilising the draft. When those numbers turn black, that means her wheels are out and no longer in the draft, as you can just see there. Perfect timing, Ella. Thank you very much. You know, she is riding a smart race. She knows where her strength is. She's not panicked because she knows she's got a teammate down the road with Lytton. Brittany Lytton is a strong, strong rider, and Vink will know that from the MyWhoosh Championships and the Sunday Race Club. But Vink very much riding with her head at the moment, and I'm sure there must be some team tactics and some team conversation going on at the moment to ensure everything is going to plan.
230 watts as the riders here in Category 2 make their way underneath the ocean. This is a lovely shot of the peloton riding well together. We're watching Lisa Hermansen at the moment. 75 cadence, heart rate at 131, and as Emma mentioned, the watts going green and black coming in and out of the wheels, just trying to hide a little bit. And this group of riders are 27.5 minutes through the race. They are coming up towards the end of the aquarium climb now, which we will crest at 15.7 kilometers of racing. And it looks like we are almost at the top. They'll come out of that shot, and then they'll go under this archway, and that will be the top of the climb for the Category 2 riders. Right at the front, it's Hermansen who is trying to go clear and just go to the top of the climb first, although being challenged at the top of the climb there, neck and neck with Julia Walkenhorst.
Yeah, absolutely. Now Hermansen, you know, we have the quality of the fields is absolutely superb. Hermansen riding at the Esports Olympics, other riders riding at the Esports World Championships. We have world-class riders competing on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club, but there is something for everybody with all 4 categories. You know, it gives us a really good spread of abilities, and like for like racing, you will race with people of a similar ability to yourself, which is why we see such close racing across all 4 categories. Now, Hermansen and Walkenhurst are part and parcel of this category 2 pack here, and this pack, I'm currently looking at Hermansen's heart rate at 143. I think this is quite a steady pace at the moment for some of these riders. For others, it may be more of an effort, but this is still a large group. I'm looking at that thinking there must be 15 riders or so in this group at the moment in this category 2 pack.
Yeah, there's still lots of riders in with a chance of taking this victory today, but let's not forget this is a team competition for the Sunday Race Club for the final. That's key for all the riders. You will cross the line first, but you're also thinking about your teammates who are in here. Let's go back then with the riders in category 4. This is coming back together, Emma, now.
Yeah. They are back. We are back with Howeller and Lytton, but Katana, Alzat, Ospina, Giraldo, all now, they're around 7 seconds down. So from that 35-second gap these 2 riders had established, it came down to 15. It's now down to 9. And Howeller is the rider just not wanting to get caught here as she pushes on again. They're on this climb at the moment. It's just shy of 5%, the gradient, and Howeller making the most of that as she pushes on. She's now got an 8-second gap to Lytton, who is being brought back by the group.
This race is starting to transform a little bit. The riders in the red jerseys are category 4. We go all the way through to category 1. So the 2 riders who have been putting on the pressure all the time, Brittany Lytton and Holweiler, are starting to be brought back. But this climb, as you mentioned, at 4.9% now is a little bit of a tricky one. You've got to think all the time, how do you use your energy? One of the riders who's been particularly impressive today in this category 4 is Salama Al-Kaabi, who is constantly doing the right amount of work to bring things back together. She seems to be feeling good on this particular race day, and maybe she is the rider who's going to take the victory at the end of this one. She's starting to close up in the riders in front of her, slowly but surely closing this gap. 2-3 seconds. She's almost on the wheels, and she's just about now to make the junction.
Yeah, she is indeed, and she's one of our individual riders in this category 4 race today, so riding for an individual top 5 position, and not part and parcel of those team tactics that some of the other riders will be today.
On the left hand side, we go back to our riders in blue. That's our 3rd category riders. We haven't seen them for a little while. Still all together. There's still a fairly concentrated group of riders. They're coming up to the Liwa Desert Sprint, and they're just about to go under that archway in the Liwa Deserts. A little bit warm out there today, I'm sure, and we're watching Angel Yadlock, who has just gone under that archway to get this sprint underway. This is our penultimate sprint before we go into the rack sprint and then onto the final climb of today's race. So for this group of riders, about 16 kilometers to go until we reach the race finish.
Yeah, absolutely. And most of that 16 kilometres, or half of that 16 kilometres, it's an 8-kilometre category 2 climb coming towards the end of the race today. That checkered flag is going to be 413 metres up from the base of that climb. So a phenomenal effort required from these riders and the latter stages of this race to cross that finish line first. And I think it's quite interesting here because this category 3 pack all moving together and coming up the 20-kilometre mark, so 15 kilometres now for that category 3 pack. We've looking at more like 20 kilometres or just shy of 20 kilometres for our category 1 race field, and all the main protagonists are still in this group at the moment. So Engström's here, Tobin, Cavado, Marin, Bardeskaya, all the riders we would expect to see in this group are still in here as they continue to, I was going to use the word motor, but I'm not quite sure they really are motoring at the moment. You know, Maria Marin's heart rate is 133. Now, for me, that's a Sunday club run.
33 kilometers an hour they're rolling along at. Let's take a look then at the aquarium climb. The fastest rider up there was Julia Valkenhorst. She did that climb in 4 minutes 1.718 and a good advantage over the rest of the riders. So Julia Valkenhorst, no real surprise that she was the fastest rider up there, Emma, I don't think.
Yeah, but I think it is interesting, isn't it? Look, our Category 2 riders, that from Team Europe and the Gladiators teams from Category 2 really showing in that climb. And Category 2 climbing our aquarium climb pretty much at the same pace as Category 1. Liliana Morena from the Spartan Obstacles, our fastest Category 1 rider in 7th position, but just 1.5 seconds back. So Category 2 and Category 1 pretty much climbing that first climb today at a steady pace and very, very similar pace to each other. Category 3, our next group on the road in terms of positions, around 20 seconds slower.
We're back then with the Category 1 riders. These riders have covered 16.7 kilometres of the 35 kilometres that the riders face today. So getting close now to the midway point into Kazarawatan, which is the next sprint point. They'll then go into the Liwa Desert Sprint and then the Rack Sprint. This sprint is 300 metres. So they're just riding through. And you might wonder, why is there no one really sprinting in this particular section? Because it's so tactical. They are just happy to stay in the slipstream. You imagine that the riders are sitting, and many of them sitting at home on their smart trainers, powering their way along. They'll be pouring with sweat right now as this race continues. Let's take a look then at the Kazarawatan sprint. The fastest rider through there, Mina Kostinen, with 33.916. The watts up at 195 and the watts per kilo at 3.2, but with a very low heart rate.
Yeah, so 19 riders in that Category 1 race field, all going through at a very, very similar time on that sprint effort. And, you know, you're quite right, Anthony. Take a look at the heart rate list: 126, 134, 127, 115 from Berio Cerna. You know, a very, very steady state pace for our Category 1 race. I don't think that's really started yet.
Doesn't look like it, does it? I think we've got an awful lot more to come in this Category 1 race. They're around about 30 minutes through, coming up to 31 minutes. The tempo is steady. Here we are, back now with the Category 4 riders, and a stretch as this rider, Salama Al-Kaibi, goes clear from the rest of this peloton. This rider today looks like she is feeling the strongest in this Category 4. She's now putting Brittany Lytton under pressure, and she's opened up a massive advantage on the rest of the field. Things are starting to develop here in this race.
Yeah, they are indeed, aren't they? This Category 4 effort from Al-Kaibi, phenomenal riding from Al-Kaibi. She was in that second group on the road, and don't forget, at one point, Lytton and Holweller had 35 seconds on that group. Now, Salama Al-Kaibi was absolutely instrumental in closing that gap down, and she's been rewarded by not just closing the gap, but going past Holweller. And now Al-Kaibi and Lytton have got 15 seconds on Holweller, who has got 10 seconds on the chasing group. So phenomenal riding here from Al-Kaibi in Category 4.
Back then with our Category 2 riders, we are 20.5 kilometres through the race, coming up towards the Rack Sprint in about 5 kilometres time. We're here with Lisa Hermansson, catching one rider in front in the blue jerseys. So of course there'll be riders who drop back a little bit, and they, as we mentioned earlier, they can drop into the group of riders if they have the legs. But a little bit of a stretch now in this particular race as we see two riders starting to go clear in Category 2, and a real stretch of tempo with Lisa Hermansson being one of them at the front of this race.
Yeah, and the other rider is Wendy Salazar. Salazar coming up earlier this month from Category 3 to Category 2. So she's obviously feeling very comfortable with the steady state pace of these Category 2 riders today. And she's thinking she's going to have a go, which is absolutely fantastic to see. I love a bold rider. And if Salazar's come up from Category 3 into Category 2 this month, and she's in the final, and she's absolutely making sure everybody knows she's arrived. So Salazar and Hermansen, the two riders now utilising the climb just to stretch this group, and it's Parra and Sanchez on the front, and that is not surprising. Jenny Sanchez, we know, a very, very strong rider. She took the win in Category 2 last week in the final qualifier, and Angie Parra, she was active from the start today.
A little bit of panic in this group behind as they all start to jump around and find their way onto the wheels, because they know that this could be a critical moment in this particular race. The watts have suddenly started to increase, the cadence is up, the heart rates are up. We have started to get the next phase of this race starting, where things are starting to get less tactical and it's more about the power you can put out. Left hand side of the screen then, we are with Category 1 as we see these riders making their way again towards the last part of this race. Still all together, this has been a cagey race so far. No one is prepared to take a big initiative in Category 1.
No, absolutely not. So 19 riders still in this pack in this Category 1 race leading this. Still a very, very steady pace. Fuhr at the moment, 2.7 watts per kilo, a heart rate of 121. These riders really are happy and content to roll through the earlier stages of this course together. You can see on that top right-hand corner, we're starting to see some of the rolling terrain, which is really, you know, coming up towards or just after that 20-kilometre mark into that 27-kilometre start point of the Hebel Haze. It's going to be interesting to see whether any of the teams utilise the section before the main climb today for an attack to make this group smaller, because otherwise we're going to see 19 riders who have pretty much had a steady state effort coming to that climb together, and pretty much that 35-kilometre race is going to be about an 8k race.
It is going to be an 8k race. There's the Liwa Desert Sprint, the penultimate sprint of the race. Carolina Alzate is the rider who has the fastest time through there, and 4.2 watts per kilo at the top of the leaderboard, with all the rest of the riders just behind.
Yeah,
Ella Vink in third place there, Emma.
Yeah, I think that's saying to me that Category 4 race, we're really pushing for that catch at this point of time through this segment. Category 1 then coming in behind Category 4, but around 4 seconds back from the fastest time. So Alzac, Tania, Vink, Ospina, Francisco da Silva and Geraldo from Category 4, setting the 6 fastest times through that segment.
That's impressive, isn't it, that the Category 4 riders just shows you can still be in Category 4 and be right up there at the top of the leaderboard, depending on the point of the race. Now we've got another attack. This attack is in Category 1, and it's Katrin Fuhrer who decides to go clear after 20 kilometers of racing. This is a big stretch now at the front of this race, and putting in what a size of wattage. 344 watts as she powers away. This is a very impressive effort now. Over 350 watts for a moment there as Quevedo tries to get back across.
Yeah, so, you know, Fuhr, Spartan Obstacles, Moreno, Olsen, Fuhr and Quevedo. Now that is an absolute phenomenal team. You know, Fuhr and was part and parcel of the winning team and podiumed in the MyWhoosh Championships. She is a regular top 10 rider on the Sunday Race Club. She is absolutely adamant she is up for this today, and it is great to see her and the Spartan Obstacles really starting to want to shake this race up.
We can see on the top right hand side there, as Emma's been pointing out, the little green marker where we are on the profile, that line that gives us an indication of the sort of terrain that is being used by these riders. And it's a clever little move here by Katrin Führer, using the top flat, false flat section over the top of this particular climb, where riders are right on their limit. She pushes on, feeling strong, and starts to open up her advantage. And then she'll be able to use the downhill section, which is coming up shortly, to try and press home that advantage and grow the gap. Two leaders then, Quevedo, Führer at the front of this race. Führer, the Swiss rider, Quevedo from Spain, as they now combine to try and build their lead and get away from the rest of this field before we get to the final climb of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right about this part and parcel of the course, Anthony, because this, after that kick up, the false flat, and then we start to drop down, we drop into a flat section, and then immediately we kick up, and the kick up out of that valley is really steep and probably the last place to attack before the flat run into the final climb. So Führer and Quevedo making use of the terrain. Al-Khabi is the rider in category 4 who has been really rewarded by the attack and trying to close the gap down on Litton and Hoella. And take a look at that gap now, 30 plus seconds back to the chasing group. Litton and Al-Khabi, the two riders now, and they are just onto the base of the climb today with around 8 kilometers to the top.
8 kilometers to the top. The time section is 6.5 kilometers, but now it's all uphill on Jabal Jace. This is where this race is going to be decided. Brittany Litton just opening up a steady little lead on Salama Al-Khabi, who is desperately trying to get back across. This is impressive.
Yeah, it is indeed, and Litton is the one to put the attack in early. Al-Khabi is the one trying to respond, but take a look at her watts. They are up and down and up and down. Litton much more steady, and you can see from the map that has just been put up in front of you, they've gone past that 27 kilometre mark, and they are now on that final category to climb the Hebel Hace. 413 metres of climbing, and it is a pretty steady climb. You know, it's not like some of the other climbs we use on the Sunday Race Club where there are exceptionally steep sections and even downhills on the climb. It is a pretty steady state climb with an average gradient of 5.1%. So I think this is going to give us some really interesting racing in all 4 of our categories, Anthony.
It is. It's an out-and-out climber's climb. We know this climb from the UAE Tour. This is the climb that the likes of Tadej Pogačar, Jonas Vingegaard, Primož Roglic, Aina Rubio have won races on before. It's become one of the mythical climbs in Arabia. And in this virtual world, it is just as tough. 8 kilometers in length, 5.1%, takes us to 413 meters. The time section is 6.5 kilometers that we will actually show you on the results board at the end, but it's a second category climb. Let's take a look then at the various groups. There's the left-hand side, the riders in yellow all together, the riders in green, category 2, with a little advantage for one rider. In the blue, all together, but 2 riders in the lead in the category 4 who've been constantly involved in the action during today's race. We're all getting set for this final climb of the day. The riders in red have been racing for 56 minutes. This is where it really starts to count now. And the riders on the category 1s riding for 41 minutes, but have already covered a significant distance. They are already at nearly 24 kilometers. They've really pushed on. Despite there not being much action today, Emma, in that category 1 group, we've seen some little stretches of pace, but they've been riding a really fast, steady tempo all day today to cover already that 24 kilometers.
Yes, and interesting to see 4.3 kilometres now separating our Category 1 riders. The last riders starting today with our Category 4 riders, the first riders starting today, and the current leaders on the road. Now, we know the difference in abilities of climbing, and it's going to be really interesting to see if the Category 1 riders make the catch and become the leaders on the road today. So around 4.5 kilometres separating those two. And it's interesting, isn't it, because that Category 1 pack, 19 riders, although they've had a pretty steady state ride along the way, still with 19 riders, that draft effect keeps their pace high.
It does keep the pace high. They are riding very impressively so far. Here we are with category 3 all together. They are making their way now to the base of the climb. Jebel Jace, this final climb of the day. You can see in front, shut up legs.
Absolutely, but 9 riders in this group on category 3, and Montoya is the rider on the front, and it's interesting to see some pace setting here as Hadlock starts to push at around 4.2 watts per kilo, so some real intention coming to the front of that group. Bulgarin joins her as well. Mabin is there, so is Hadlock. Pelagio is there too. You know, these are riders who week in, week out are here on the Sunday Race Club, and this is a course they will have ridden before, and some of these riders will know the pace that they need to set to get up this climb, and it's going to be interesting to see which one hits the top first.
You've got to pick your gears, you've got to really measure your effort all the way to the top of this climb. You don't want to make your effort too early. It is a steady climb, but look at the percentages on the top right there in that red box, coming up to 7% at times, dropping back down. So whilst it's not ultra steep, it does have these little kickers in it in some of the turns where you really need to be still feeling strong. Riders all in the wheels. You can see there that riders are just having to move up towards the front. They don't want to be towards the back. If someone leaves a big gap and then the draft effect doesn't start to happen, but suddenly little accelerations happening now and then as riders try and push on just a little bit more and just feel to see whether the other riders are feeling strong or not, whether anyone's bluffing. It's so hard, isn't it, when you can't see the rider, all you can see is your avatar. You can't tell whether someone is really tired or not. It's a really tactical game that's being played now on this final climb.
Well, it is indeed, and let's remember that these riders are riding all around the world, and whilst it might be 9:45 in the morning where I am, for some of these riders it might be 4 a.m. in the morning or 9 p.m. at night. Some of them are riding individually on their own, but we do know some of the women's teams particularly do like to be co-located and do get together and race the final all in the same room. So it is a real big mix of experience for these riders, but all of our teams being able to talk to each other through the MyWhoosh platform, because the teams are allocated an individual chat function themselves. The individual riders can talk to each other, and often our teams choosing those communication methods so that whilst they may not necessarily see each other or see the competitors, they can at least have that conversation and still ensure those team tactics. But we're in with Angie Parrott at the moment, and this category 2 pack now also on the climb. So that's 3 out of our 4 race categories now on this final climb today.
That is the beauty of this platform though, isn't it? The ability that riders can either ride anywhere in the world at any particular time, or they can be all together, or you can at least communicate through the platform, and the community builds all the time. The teams grow. Certainly when we started with the Sunday Race Club, the women's category was pretty small. Now it's really accelerated in numbers, and we're seeing here the real strength in depth of all the various categories, and also the way that it's tactically now transformed as riders really get to know the way to race on this platform. That's the beauty of MyWhoosh and the way that you can race.
Oh, absolutely. And also the fact that we've got riders from all over the world coming together and forming new teams and new racing relationships. You know, we've got riders from Switzerland, from Colombia, from Sweden, all coming together as part and parcel of a racing team on the MyWhoosh platform. And as we're seeing here, Estrada is the rider attacking again on the front of that category 1 race. And look at that, it's Quevedo who's marking her as well. So it's looking like Quevedo for the Spartan Obstacles has got marking duty on any attacks that go down the road, and it's Estrada going again.
Estrada has looked good all day today. She's trying to split this race up. She's about 1.5 kilometers now from the base of Jebel Jace, and then we'll start to make her way up the climb. Is she the strongest just on the flat, or is she the strongest on the climbs today? Only time is going to tell. Coming up to the 47-minute mark, it's been a tough race. She's clocking on at 4.2 watts per kilo. That's a fairly hefty power threshold right now, with the tempo at 77 pedal strokes per minute, and the heart rate now starting to build at 142. She's still up at nearly 40 kilometers an hour. Estrada putting in a concerted effort to try and break the will of the rest of the riders. Hits the base now of Jebel Jace, and that means, Emma, all the races now are on the climb itself, and it's all about getting to the top first.
Yeah, it is indeed, as Rosario Estrada is the rider in this Category 1 race, leading them on to the climb. Koinstanin in 2, Marin Bardeskaya, Tobin, Gonzalez, Rua, Fua, all there as well. And take a look at that. It's still a big group. There are 19 riders in this group before Estrada went off the front. There are 18 riders chasing her up this mountain at the moment. And I think this is going to be a really interesting final 8 kilometres in this Category 1 race. It is all to play for with these Category 1 women today.
It is now got that final climb of just about 8 kilometres to the top. Noticing the different choices of helmets that these riders have taken. Some riders using the aero helmets, which will have helped them on the sections until now. They'll be less helpful on this final rise, but they'll have thought about their aerodynamics and everything else that is required. On the right hand side then, the leading rider is the rider from the UAE. Salama Al-Kaibi is going clear now in Category 4, and she is the rider of the day in that particular group and is growing her advantage. 24 seconds now for Salama Al-Kaibi, and this is a very, very impressive performance on today's final race of this phase of MyWhoosh, the big final of the Sunday Race Club, and the UAE Salama Al-Kaibi is the leader.
Yeah, she's putting in an outstanding ride. She chased down those 2 riders who'd broken away earlier on. She made the catch and she's gone past both Lytton and Hoella. And now at 30.6 kilometres into this 35-kilometre race, she's been racing for 64 minutes and she is putting in a sterling effort up this climb. She's the leading rider on the road today. The Category 4 riders were the first riders to start. Al-Kaibi, Lytton, Hoella, Ospina, the top 4 riders at the moment on the road as she sweeps around that right-hand bend and continues that climb. It's 7.5% at the moment. Further back down the race field at 3% at the moment is our Category 1 riders. They are lower down the slopes. They are just over, around 2.8 kilometres behind, and the group is still together, and that is 19 riders. We did have 1 rider, in fact we still have 1 rider down the road, and that's Estrada. You can just see her further round the bend as this Category 1 group catch Rona Tanglian from the Category 4 race.
This section about 3%, so it's not a major part of this climb. We are getting steadily into it now. 50 minutes of racing gone by for the Category 1 riders. 28 kilometres, still Estrada with that slender advantage on the rest of the field. The big question is whether she can grow this advantage and push home all the way to the top.
Yeah, it's Quevedo on the front at the moment. She's been doing a lot of the chasing and a lot of the leading of the chase group at the moment. Fua is there as well. So is Gonzalez, Rua. Engstrom is in here too. So is Marin, Berrio, Cerna, Olsen. You know, strong riders. You know, so it was indeed Quevedo who took the win last week. Yet Estrada was in 4th place. She's obviously wanting to turn that around this week for the final, but that gap, I think, from the look of that, is being brought back in. 6 seconds at the moment for Estrada.
Yeah, they're bringing her back slowly but surely. No one prepared to just put in a massive turn of pace. It's a more steady, bringing her back slowly but surely into the fold, and then we'll see whether we get more attacks. Category 2. 261 watts now, and it's still 2 groups of riders on this climb. No major advantage for anybody, and it's still anybody's race.
Yeah, it's looking like we've got 6 riders in that lead group of category 2, but it is not far at all. They really are just one group spread at the moment, but 2 riders now, it's looking like, struggling to stay with this group with this pace at the moment. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 riders in this category 2 race. Quintero, Hermassen, Salazar is in here. Jenny Sanchez is here, so it's Maria Carmona and Angie Parra. It's Agudelo and Walkenhurst who are the riders who have been distanced up this climb. So they are coming up for 4.8 kilometers of climbing to go, and this group is slowly getting smaller in this category 2 race as this climb progresses.
Yeah, this group is starting to break apart now. We can see there the group of riders from that overhead shot as they work their way up at Jebel Jais now. Nice wide road for the riders to race on. And there's a nice bit of tree cover as well for them on particular sections of this rise. Although the further up you get, the more exposed it gets too. Here we are on board then with Olivia Quintero. She's towards the front of this group, sitting in the slipstream, still being clever. And there's still a little bit of slipstream advantage on any particular rise, although it's less beneficial than it is on the flat sections. Back here with category 1. We've got Estrada slightly up the road, but coming back. It's only 5 seconds now, the advantage.
Absolutely, and it's Marin, Quevedo, Fua, in fact, Catherine Marin and Maria Marin in that chase group. Tobin is there as well as Moreno. And we've seen some phenomenal rides by those riders this month. I think Estrada is going to need to push on if she wants to stay clear, because this pace at the moment, these riders all capable of staying in there. And you can see this is a large group of category 1 riders. Let's not forget this climb started at 27 kilometers. So they are 2.5 kilometers into this climb already. And other than Estrada being 5 seconds off the front, that is still a group of around 15, 16 riders chasing. And you can just see them on that shot at the moment. So Estrada in 1, the chase group just further back round the corner as Estrada goes past Kirchner, one of our category 4 riders. Now let's not forget Kirchner started 15 minutes in front of Estrada today, as Estrada continues to lead the category 1 race up this mountain.
Emma, noticing the way that Estrada's riding, she's riding a tempo of around about 4.5 watts per kilo, which is the same as the group behind. But every now and then she puts in a huge turn of tempo. She just put in a turn that took us up to around about 7.5 watts per kilo. She rides much more like a climber, that driving it home and then sitting down and setting the pace down. But it doesn't seem to be having the effect that she needs it to have on the group behind her, just riding a steady 5 watts per kilo all the time.
I think what we've seen in the racing today, because of that much steadier start, we didn't see the group whittle down too much. We still see quite a large group coming to the base of the climb, and the quality of this category 1 race field, the majority of the riders in this group are more than capable of sitting at 4.5 watts per kilo up this climb. You know, and it is going to take that kick, that little kick after little kick after little kick, that's going to start to break this group up. And I think that's what Estrada is doing to ride off the front. You know, she's hanging and sitting at a steady pace, but she is kicking and then sitting, kicking and then sitting, kicking and then sitting. Behind at the moment, they are very comfortable to pretty much time trial as a group at a steady pace that they know they are all comfortable with in the early slopes of this climb. It is going to have to light up, because let's not forget, we've got top 5 individual positions and we've got the top team positions as well, and there is a lot of prize money at stake today. You know, 315 AED prize pot today in this women's race, and they will be thinking about that in terms of splitting that large group of category 1 riders up. So not just individually the top 5 across the line, but being the top team today will be important to those riders. So those tactics will come into play in this last 5 kilometers of this race.
It's a big payday for any of these riders if they can get in the top 5 and in the team. We are back now with the category 2 riders as they now start to split up a little. We've got a group of 3 just off the front who are riding across and starting to catch now riders in the red jerseys. So that was Isabella Giraldo, who's just been caught. This group is starting to stretch. Lisa Hermansen is the rider who's doing the damage. Also with her is Jenny Sanchez and Olivia Quintero, the riders from Colombia, and Angie Parra, always staying vigilant towards the front of this second category group. They've not got too far to go now. They're coming up to 32 kilometres, only 3 kilometres of racing remaining for this group of riders, which means that the riders in the fourth category group and the third category group are very, very close now to this race finish. And as I speak, we go back with the third category riders, who are not too far from the finish line. There they are on the right hand side as we take a look at them. In fact, they are now in fact, the riders in the group in the green are getting close to catching them, aren't they? They are very, very steady and getting close to this group of the riders in the blue jerseys.
So we've got category 2 around 180 metres behind the category 3 race, and we have the category 4 race. Not much difference in time or gap ahead of this category 3 race. So our leaders in the category 4 race are still the leaders on the road at the moment. They are at 32.7 kilometres, so 400 metres ahead of this leading category 3 pack. But this leading category 3 pack is still really large. We've got 8 riders in this lead of this category 3 race at the moment, and they are coming up for 2.5 kilometres left in this race. Now, we've talked about the top 5 positions being instrumental in the individual race. It's the top 3 riders in each team who count towards the team competition. Now, I think we're going to see this category 3 pack catch the category 2 pack, and Ella Vink there in 8th place, Catania in 7th. Those are the 2 riders this category 3 group are going to see first. The question is, are the category 2 pack, who are currently around 150 metres behind this leading category 3 group, going to make the catch first?
Here we are with Jenny Sanchez, who is the leading rider in category 2 and starting to grow the lead. Around about 5 seconds on Quintero, 6 seconds on Hermansen, Parra and Salazar. Jenny Sanchez is starting to make a big move as she jumps her way across now to the group in front, and that is the group of the third category riders. She is putting in a massive attack.
And this is one of the tactics we see regularly on the Sunday Race Club. When your group comes on to the back of a group of riders in the next category down the road, this is a time when the attack can really count, because you are going through the race field in front. It's a confusing time, and it's a difficult time for the group of riders that you are with to see exactly what is going on, because the riders can see exactly what we can see on our screens at the moment. So currently at the moment, the category 2 pack cannot see Jenny Sanchez's watts because they are too far down the roll of riders. It gives Sanchez a small opportunity to put a dig in without the other riders seeing the amount of watts she's putting out. Now, she's utilized that, and Sanchez has gone up and round on this corner. She's gone up and round and through and past all of those category 3 riders. There's a scrabble at the front, I think, from Pelagio to try and get on Sanchez's wheel and utilize Sanchez to get up this mountain and to stretch this category 3 group, but it's not going to work because Sanchez is currently sat just shy of 5 watts per kilo. Phenomenal effort coming out of Jenny Sanchez at the moment.
Yeah, Sanchez looking extremely strong now, 5.1 watts per kilo. She's gone through the group in front of her, the third category riders, and pushed on. And interesting there, the way that Emma understands the tactics that are employed here by Jenny Sanchez as she made her way up to that group in the blue, jumping away, confusing all the other riders behind who only have the same data on the screen that you have. Now an attack from Lady Giraldo as she tries to come up to the wheel of Sanchez to use her wheel as well to good effect to try and win this race for the third category riders. So remember, today we have 4 different categories. Yellow is first, green is the second category, blue is third, red is fourth category, and they individually have different teams within them, so we are looking for the different winners overall. Here is Salama Al-Kaabi on the right hand side as she closes in now on the race finish for the 4th category riders. This rider from the UAE has been very, very impressive today. She let Holweiler and Lytton go clear, but Al-Kaabi now is heading towards the top of Jebel Jais, this iconic climb in the UAE, to try and win this race for the 4th category riders. Back on board with the first cat riders, and it's really being stretched now. There are riders sprinting all over the place, trying to catch Estrada in front. They are not too far behind her now.
No, absolutely not. So Estrada in 1, Catherine Marin in 2, Quevedo, Maria Marin, Fua, Coinston, all pushing now, pushing on those pedals up this climb and stretching this category 1 race filled out. Estrada's lead 2 seconds. She's at 6 watts per kilo at the moment. Quevedo is doing that, chasing with Catherine Marin. Morgane Olsen is moving up the field as well. So these riders now really starting to put the pedals down on this climb to win this race. We are at 32.8 kilometers now, and Quevedo desperately trying to get across that gap to Estrada, but Estrada is maintaining. It's a small gap, but Estrada is definitely maintaining that at the moment.
The way that Estrada has raced today has been intriguing because she has just managed somehow to stay off the front. Every time the riders come up to her, she manages to put in another big turn of pace just to stay away, but it looks like it's all come back together in the 1st category group. Right hand side of our screen, we are closing in on the race finish with Salama Al-Kaabi. We're 500 meters from the top of the climb. She's 6.4% as a gradient. This is where it really starts to hurt on Jebel Jais, but she is going to very soon be able to sit up and enjoy this victory because she's got a lovely advantage. 30 seconds is now her lead.
Yeah, fantastic riding from Al-Kaabi.
Yeah, she looks good. There's our aerial shot of Al-Kaabi. She's not too far now from the race finish. Any moment now, she's going to see the gantry across the road. There it is. She is going to win this 4th category race. There's no doubt at all about that as she makes her way to the conclusion of Sunday Race Club, this monthly final. Salama Al-Kaabi, 35 kilometers of racing. She rode a very, very intelligent race. She let all the other riders jump away, and finally she put the crushing blow in on the final climb up to Jebel Jais. Salama Al-Kaabi closes in then on the race finish. She takes the 4th category win. Salama Al-Kaabi of the UAE is first across the line.
Phenomenal riding from Al-Kaabi for category 4. I think we're going to drop back in with Jenny Sanchez because I think this is going to be the next race category finish that we're going to see. So Jenny Sanchez currently leading the category 2 race. The 2 riders behind the leaders in the category 3 race. Hermansen, 12 seconds back, is 2nd currently in the category 2 race field. So this is the lead in category 2 and the lead in category 3, with coming up for 200 meters to go.
200 meters to go then for these riders, and it's Lady Giraldo, and also up there is Montoya. So Lady Giraldo Montoya sprinting flat out now in this 3rd category as she makes her way across the line. What an attack to take that win. Fantastic performance. The 2nd category is going to be Jenny Sanchez with a tactical masterclass. Jenny Sanchez crosses the line to win the 2nd category group.
Yeah, and the chase is on behind because Lisa Hermansen is in two. Wendy Salazar 5 seconds back and closing fast. Salazar had kicked at 13 watts per kilo, but it wasn't enough to catch Hermansen. Quintero is the next rider in category 2, but there's a chase on for category 3. Montoya and Pulgarin. Pulgarin kicking 10 watts per kilo from Pulgarin to take some of those lower places in that category 3 race as we watch Claudia Marin come through as well for the lower places.
We turn our attention back to the final race. This is Estrada in that yellow jersey. This rider is still holding on in this first category race. Somehow she has managed to just increase the tempo every single time the group of first category riders has come back to her. She's still quite a distance from the race finish, around about 600 meters. But Emma, just summarize for me this performance of Estrada, because this has been a clever race by her today.
It has indeed. She attacked just before the climb started, about 8 kilometres down the road, and she'd established a small gap before they went into the base of this climb, and Estrada has sat at a steady pace. She's kicked and sat, but take a look at the group coming behind. Estrada is going to have to dig if she wants to win this race now. She has been at the front of this pack all the way up the climb. She's got 400 metres to go, but the gap is now 2 seconds, and they are coming fast behind. The chase is being led, but Estrada is going to turn the corner first. Estrada is going to be the first category 1 rider to see the finish gantry, but it is indeed the chase group coming, and they are kicking hard. Already 9.5 watts per kilo, Marin at 9.2, 10 watts per kilo coming from Fua. The push is on, and this is going to be a sprint for the line. We are absolutely going to see this kick here because Berrio Serna is in here, Moreno, Marin, Fua. They are kicking fast, they're kicking hard. Moreno is here, Marin is leading it, but is Marin going to get it from Estrada? Who is going? Wow, what can we say? But we had an 8-kilometre climb in the category 1 race, and it came to a sprint. You're going to like this, Anthony, because Estrada got it.
Estrada just got it by 0.001 of a second. That is incredible. I thought it was going to be heartbreak for her, but Rosario Estrada, she deserved it. She holds on by the minutest of margins possible. 0.001 from Marin and Fura in second and third place. How impressive was that?
Well, all I can say is I'm so pleased there was a computer on the finish line there, and that wasn't a line judge, because that is the smallest of margins for Estrada today to take the win. But a phenomenal riding up that climb, absolutely rewarded in that sprint, and to hold on to take the win. Rosario Estrada of the Fire Girls taking the win from Catherine Marin, Catherine Fur, Maria Marin, Liliana Moredo, Karub Quevedo, Morgane Olsen, Berrio Serna, all in that top 8 and within a second of each other on that finish line.
Yeah, very impressive last climb by all those riders. Our monthly final then of the women's categories has presented some fantastic racing. We've enjoyed that. We'll give you all the results, of course, on MyWhoosh.com. I'm Anthony McCrossan. Alongside me for that women's race has been Emma Martin. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll be back with the men's final very soon. Bye for now.